His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor.
Right, welcome to Tuesdays with Tammy. I am so excited. Today it's not going to be just about me, but I have a very special guest that I'm so excited to introduce. And I'm not going to say too much about her because I'm just going to let her tell her amazing story. But I want to preface it with two scriptures that totally goes along with her story and what God has done. And I'm naming this one From the Birthing Room to the Schoolhouse to the White House for her son. So Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us." That goes along with this story. God has done amazing things, more than she could ever have dreamed or imagined. And then one more scripture, and I'm going to introduce her, is Proverbs 31:25 through 28. "Strength and honor are her clothing." This is a virtuous woman. "She shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She watches over the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates." This is so relevant to her story. She's a very virtuous woman, and so I'm now going to introduce you to my dear friend who I've known for probably 20 years. She's from Mansfield, Ohio, and Rick and I used to live there, and now we live in the Columbus area. But her name is Tera Myers. And so, Tera, welcome to Tuesdays with Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. That was such a nice
good
introduction.
To have
Thank
you.
you. I don't think I'm worthy of all that.
Oh my, you are amazing.
Thank you.
And I want you just to share your story,
Okay.
kind of in a nutshell. Blakey gives us my little time, so we'll go like at least 20 minutes at
Okay.
least. I mean, if it goes over more than that, that's
Okay.
fine. But you have such an amazing story, and we have another special guest that will be introducing her son in this too. So go ahead and share your story.
Thank you. And yeah, this is really it's not my story. It's God's story. I mean, through me, and I feel very humbled that I've been given this life.
Amazing.
And you know, I remember when I accepted the Lord when I was 8, and I was with my cousins. And to be honest with you, my cousin went to a really vibrant Pentecostal church, and I remember he was preaching from the front, and all I remember is my cousin and I were thinking, we don't want to go to hell. And
Yes.
this alternative sounded really wonderful. And so we accepted the Lord, and I really felt a calling on my life even at that time, at the age of 8 years old.
Yeah.
And my aunts from that church just really led us down a path of ministry and ministering to us as little girls. And you know, I can recall back to times throughout my childhood where God was clearly had his hand in decisions.
Yes.
And sadly, I recall times in my upbringing where I walked away and thought, well, I don't know that I really believe what I've been taught. Maybe it's what my parents believe or what I was led to, and really kind of trying to decipher that out, and watching how God continued to just sit there and call me back.
Awesome.
And say, come back, Tera. And so
Yes.
I really counted an honor. And, you know, I'm going to talk about my son and about just the journey that we've been on. I got married in the last year of my college, and I had great plans. You know, I don't know if
Yes,
any of
the
you
plans
have.
of man.
Oh my goodness, yes. You know, we have all these grandeur ideas in our head of what's going to happen with our life, and then God says, no, that's not the path that I put you on. But I had visions of being this huge career businesswoman. And I was on the track to that. My husband and I left Ohio and went to Florida, and we both completed our internships there in program planning and recreation. And my husband went on and took a job at a golf resort and joined the PGA apprenticeship program. And I landed what I thought was my dream recreation position. I was a
Wow.
director immediately before I even graduated. And I thought, wow, this is my 5-year plan, and God has already answered my prayer. And we got married just a couple months later, and fast track, everything was going just wonderfully. And then suddenly 4 months into the marriage, I found out I was pregnant. And that was a 10-year goal. And I
God's
told
like,
everybody,
okay.
yeah, at the wedding shower, I said, oh no, 10 years. My husband
Yes.
comes from a very large family,
Aw.
and lots of grandchildren, and I was like, I want no part of that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that wasn't really in God's plan for me. So
I love
I was devastated. I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know my husband yet. What's this going to look like? And I'm going to have to, my husband and I had discussed that we were going to, I was going to stay home. And at the time, I was the breadwinner. He was in the apprenticeship program. And I said, well, I'll work up until I have the baby. And lo and behold, 4 months into the pregnancy, that was when the triple screen test had just come out.
Wow.
Oh, this is the big new thing. And all of the golf assistant women, the wives, were pregnant. There was like 4 of us that were all
wow.
pregnant at the same time. And so we were all going to the same group of midwives that were connected with doctors. And everyone's like, the big buzz was, are you going to get that test done? I'm like, oh, sure, why not? You know, I'm 24 years old. I'm young. Why not?
Yeah.
Help with study research. And everybody was just a week or two ahead of me. And they all went in and, oh, yes, no big deal. And I went in and had the test done, and my results came back. And I remember getting the call and them saying, we need you to come in because we need to offer you some additional testing. You see, all of the results came back in the typical range with the exception of one, which is for Down syndrome. And before the test, based upon these markers, you had a 1 in 1,350 chance of, it was actually 1,354 because I remember that number,
Wow.
chance of having a child with Down syndrome. But after the test, you have a 1 in 16.
Whoa.
And I looked at the midwife and I said, the baby's going to have Down syndrome. And she said, no, I don't think you understand what this means. It means you could have 16 pregnancies and only one of those 16. And I said, you know what? I remember reading the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. And I remember coming to that chapter on what they labeled birth defects and complications in pregnancy. And I remember getting up out of the bedroom and going out and asking my husband, what would you do if God chose us to be parents of a child with special needs? And my husband's like, where is this coming from? And I said, well, I was reading this chapter, and
Interesting.
so, well, we wouldn't do anything. And the moment that she told me that, I was taken back to that discussion
Wow.
with my husband. And that was the fleet of this discussion. There was
Yes.
really no discussion. And so she said, well, we're going to forward you on. And lo and behold, we went to further testing. And when that came back, they said, yes, the baby has Down syndrome. What would you like to do? I said, what do you mean, what would I like to do?
Yeah.
And they had me come in, and they wanted to refer me to a geneticist. And I said, I don't understand. I thought they just, I'm so naive at 24.
Yeah.
I thought they just wanted me to get prepared. And instead, they said, well, you need to make plans for termination.
Excuse me.
And at that point, I was 5.5 months pregnant. Samuel was kicking and moving inside me. And I said, oh, no, I would never consider that. And they said, well, you said you weren't planning a pregnancy, and you have up until the time the baby is born to terminate. But it would just be better to do it now. And I was like, wait a minute. And I was by myself. All of our family was in Ohio. My husband was at work, and I could not believe what I was hearing.
Yes.
I said, well,
It's no big deal.
Nope. It was like I was changing out a pair of
Yeah,
shoes.
dear God,
I wore out a pair of sandals, and it was time to get a new pair. And I said, but I haven't even met the doctor, because I was going through midwives, and I said, I need to meet the doctor. And I thought, well, surely I'll take and they said, well, let's schedule the appointment, but we really want you to think about your options. And my husband and I went to the library because, there was no internet at that point.
Yeah.
So back in the early 90s, and went to the library, and there were 6 books about Down syndrome.